Chapter 94, Water of Heavenly Wind. With no sound and warning whatsoever, the sound of an item wheezing through the air came from afar. The trajectory of the item was extremely ingenious and speed of it akin to light. Just as the white-robed girl reached the apex of her jump, the item positioned itself under her feet, allowing the girl to daintily step on it, relying on it to exert force. In midair, her robes fluttered with the wind, akin to a celestial maiden riding the winds. As for the object that she stepped on, it shattered into two with a caca sound, producing a whistling sound as it shot towards the two black-robed men. Both men simultaneously struck out with their palms, knocking the two objects onto the ground. They turned out to be only tiles. Both the black-robed men were experts with great status. How could they endure being toyed with? Both activated their movement techniques with a whistle, chasing after the white-robed girl like a bolt of lightning. The white-robed girl merely floated ahead, neither too fast nor too slow, as though she did not put the two enemies on her tail and her eyes at all. Even as their swords was about to pierce her, she was still unmoved and indifferent. As the swords tilted towards her, yet another white blur appeared out of nowhere like a ghost, with speed at least twice of the white-robed girl. In a flash, the white blur had already appeared in the middle of the three. With a flip of his hands, he actually managed to trap the blades of the two swords belonging to the black men. This caused great shock to both the black-robed men. Purging their internal strength, they attempted to retrieve their swords. If the black-robed men were to be relieved of their swords in a face-to-face confrontation by this white-robed person, these two arrogant men would probably kill themselves out of humiliation. However, the white-robed person seized the advantage while both men were focusing their strength to retrieve their swords. With a shake of his hands, two imposing forces were ingeniously projected respectively into both swords. Caught unawares and unable to defend, both the black-robed men were forced backwards to the left and right with a bedraggled appearance. The white-robed person, however, did not press on. Instead, he took the white-robed female in front and loftily soaring to another rooftop far away from them. He then spoke in a strange-sounding voice, "What great talents the Yu family has! Having two experts trap a young girl in a pincer attack. This sort of courage and resource has greatly broadened this one's horizons." Both the black-robed men were still trying to catch their breaths, with their chests undulating inconsistently. One of them then spat out viciously, "Don't think that I won't know both of your identities just because the both of you are hiding behind masks. Water of heavenly wind, aren't you people too unbridled? To think you people actually dare to disregard the millennia-long contract signed between our ancestors. The 60-year battle of 3 generations is only a mere 3 years away, but you people actually dare to appear here so brazenly. The both of your guts aren't small either." The two white-robed people were precisely Ling Tian and Ling Chen. Ling Chen now stood beside Ling Tian, her eyes cold and apathetic. As long as Ling Tian was by her side, Ling Chen was unwilling to have any thoughts, unwilling to use her brains. This was because so long as Ling Tian was present, all she wanted to do was to follow his instructions to a fault. All women were like thus. If the man of their dreams was stronger than them, then she would not bother putting in the effort to think, blindly believing in their own beloved to take care of it. If a woman could display this sort of attitude in front of a man, this would also mean that her heart had been totally conquered by him. Water of heavenly wind. What is that supposed to mean? Ling Tian's heart thumped violently at this new information. He thought, seems like what I've hypothesized in the past wasn't too far off. However, his eyes remained clear, not betraying his inner thoughts as he continued in that strange voice of his, now laced with some unhappiness. "We merely heard that little Princess Yu was residing here, and specially came to greet her. Is there a need to use our ancestors' teachings to pressure us? Ha ha ha. Preposterous. Ridiculous." In his anger, his originally dark face actually had a change in color as he retorted, "You people have turned your back on the treaty and have come to Heavenly Star of your own volition. This is already considered treachery. For you to have such guts to come over to spy on my house's little miss, that alone already explains your treacherous intent. This Zhu would rather perish here than let you despicable people leave." The man refused to talk anymore. With a flap of his arms, he soared up, brandishing his sword. With a sound akin to a clap of thunder, the sky lit up with sword beams. The man in question seemed to have turned into 1,000 armed Azura, the swords all directed towards Ling Tian. On the other side, the other silent black-robed man also sprang into action. Even before both men neared, Ling Tian's robes had already billowed out due to the gales that their sword darts created. Ling Tian merely smiled in response. The night had not been in vain for him. Seeing the aggressiveness of both men, he knew that the duo had planned to leave their lives here in return for theirs. He did not want to continue tangling with them, since he had already achieved his objective. Lingering around would be pointless. Throwing out his hands, 2 jets of noxious white smoke spurted out. In a split second, one could not even see their outstretched hands. The duo rushing over could not help but turn sluggish, for fear that the fog contained poison. Since they did not dare to enter the white fog, they could only look at each other and sigh. The black-robed duo subconsciously felt that for the figure in front of them, even if they were to join forces against them, they would still be undoubtedly defeated. They did not imagine that the opposing aristocratic family would actually have an expert of such a class. For this sort of character, most likely, his skill may not even lose out to their family head. Such news was no minor matter and they had to inform their own family head quickly, so as to make ample preparations. When the white fog dissipated, to no one's surprise, there was already no sign of the 2 masked figures in white. As far as the eye could see, there was only the night breeze blowing gently against the plants, letting them sway in the night. One could only see the stars and river, with the bright moon against the sky. The night may have regained its former peace, but those of the Yu family felt as though there was a boulder weighing down their hearts. Everyone had heavy hearts upon thinking that such formidable enemies were actually in their vicinity, impossible to defend against. The rest of the bodyguards were even paler after seeing the exchange between those people just moments ago. That sort of stage was a realm where they could never interfere in. They could imagine what exactly would happen to them if it were them meeting with such people. Is it really them? It shouldn't be wrong. The sword intent was continuous like flowing water, the movements of that person as though flowing along a river. There can't be any other. To think that they actually sent out such an expert. A solemn atmosphere pervaded the Yu family's people. Taking advantage of the darkness, Ling Tian and Ling Chen returned to their little courtyard without raising any noise. "Chenner, send out the news. Inform Ling Jiayu and the rest to pick a few highly capable men, and proceed to the Heavenly Wind continent to source for information." After hearing the exchange between the black-robed man and Ling Chen, especially the phrase "water of heavenly wind," Ling Tian began to feel that this could be the linchpin. Thus, he had no choice but to reveal himself, and true enough, he really obtained something of importance. The 1,000-year treaty set by the ancestors. This phrase talked about a treaty. What treaty was that? Most likely, the treaty had something to do with the Yu family. 60-year battle of 3 generations. What was that supposed to mean as well? Was it a matter regarding 2 aristocratic clans? You people have turned your back on the treaty, and have come to Heavenly Star of your own volition. This is already considered treachery. These 3 sentences had already given Ling Tian many clues and hints. There is indeed something fishy about all this. Ling Tian's eyes flickered with a hidden light as he muttered under his breath. "I would really like to see how long you people can keep your presence veiled." Chapter 95, Insufficient Experience. Very quickly, Ling Chen sent out the messenger falcons and took the chance to sit beside Ling Tian blissfully. With her jade-like hands massaging Ling Tian's shoulders, her delicate face was tinted with a flush, not unlike what one would get after a workout. She had long heard Ling Tian say that those people were the top-ranked experts in this present age, and to actually be on par with them tonight. Furthermore, when there were 2 against 1, Ling Chen could not help but feel excited. Looking at Ling Chen's face, which was full of expectation for a praise by Ling Tian, the latter could not help but want to laugh. Yet he knew that right now was definitely not the time to do so. There was still a huge flaw for Ling Chen when it came to adapting to the situation. Even though there was no indication of losing in today's battle, Ling Tian, who was clear about Ling Chen's abilities, was clear that Ling Chen was already on the losing end. This was not a problem with her strength, nor her moves. In fact, the sword moves that Ling Tian had passed to her were complex beyond words, surpassing those black-robed men by at least 1 grade. Ling Chen's underperformance today was fully because of her inexperience. If Ling Tian were to praise her right now, it would only negatively impact her future progress. Looking at Ling Tian's solemn face staring back at her, the elation that filled Ling Chen slowly ebbed away. She looked at Ling Tian nervously, unsure of what crime she had committed. "Are you feeling very proud of yourself now?" A 16 to 17-year-old lass, actually holding her own again, those at the peak of this world and actually not falling behind? Quite self-satisfied, aren't you? Looking at Ling Chen, Ling Tian's face was a little icy. You. Ling Chen only dared to take a peep at Ling Tian's expression, and immediately hung her head down. Her long eyelashes fluttered as the rims of her eyes began to turn red. By rushing in like this, did you think that your timing was perfect? If you had waited for a moment before striking out, you would be placed in the most advantageous position possible. But you were greedy and advanced prematurely. If the men in black could deal with you, then you would have been defeated, and most likely injured. As for the troublesome move that the black-robed men perform, I've previously taught you how to overcome their moves, but what did you do? If not for the fact that your sword darts were far more superior than them, you would probably have trouble even escaping with your whole body intact. Once the battle drags on, they will get used to your style, which means that the danger will rise another level. Ling Tian lectured in a low tone. Seeing how Ling Chen was close to bursting out in tears, he began to feel as though his words were a little too harsh. However, he had no choice. If he did not burn this lesson into her mind, then if they were to meet with someone stronger in the future, she would definitely get into big trouble. The tears shed today would be better than the blood shed tomorrow. Ling Chen stood rooted with her head bowed down, not daring to talk. Seeing that, Ling Tian's voice also became gentle as he said, "Don't harp on it, these problems appeared because your experience in life or death scenarios is too little. Thus, these problems would occur. After you become more experienced, then the problems will also gradually disappear." Ling Chen wiped her eyes, sniffling as she replied, "Yes, young noble. Chen'er knows her mistake." Ling Tian took a deep breath. He had already achieved his objective. Based on her intellect, Ling Chen would be able to figure out his meaning easily. He took her into his arms as he whispered gently, "You have to remember that when true experts fight, they will not wait for their opponents to utilize their moves before they go and attempt to counter them. Their bodies are so conditioned that they will naturally convert to the counter moves. This sort of feeling, I call it muscle memory. This can also be called an instinct of someone in the martial way. For most people, the speed of processing thoughts usually cannot be kept up with the limbs. As such, the limbs might surpass the mind totally. If you wait until you fully understand your opponent's moves before carrying out your counterattack, your life would have already ended up in the control of the enemy. After mastering muscle memory, even if you cannot defeat the opponent, you still can fight on equal grounds, without danger to your life." Ling Chen still had traces of tears in her eyes, but had already entered into a contemplative state, silently digesting the words which Ling Tian just spoke. Her dainty body continued to lie in Ling Tian's embrace, her head resting on his chest, and her hands wrapped around his waist. Ling Tian tenderly stroked her black, glossy hair, the corners of his mouth turned upwards in a gentle smile. In the room, what was full of thunder and gloom had suddenly morphed into a place full of warmth and love. Both parties did not make any sound, and though it was deep in the night, both did not have any intentions to sleep. The flame of the oil lantern on the table danced cheerfully, and emitted a spark with a paw sound, somehow increasing the joy in the room by a few notches. For the next 2 days, Ling Tian brought a cross-dressed Ling Tian out the moment the day broke. For those in the residence, they all thought that Ling Tian was headed to the imperial palace. In actual fact, Ling Tian spent those 2 days giving pointers to Ling Chen, Feng, Yan, Lei, Diane and Qi to increase their overall strength. While the joyous atmosphere in the imperial palace increased to an all-time high, so did the killing atmosphere in the Ling outer courtyard. After the battle Ling Chen had that night, the other 5 received huge setbacks when they heard about it. They were currently not even a match for Ling Chen, and to think that the duo could even hold a slight upper hand when against Ling Chen. Hearing such news, all 5 of them could not help but have reddened eyes. All of them could be seen practicing their sword moves from dawn to dusk, to the point where they could not even move a finger before they thought of resting. Ling Tian was not stingy too, and passed on all his battle experiences as well as core techniques. During training, even though those fellers were screaming to the heavens, they actually practiced even harder. Seeing this situation, Ling Tian also felt gratified. As for the little princess of the Yu family and Wei Zhuan, seeing as Ling Tian never appeared in their courtyard ever since the first day, they decided to go to the outer palace hall to take a look. Since Yu Bingyan was hiding her appearance, she hardly stood out. However, Wei Zhuan was in trouble. The moment the crowd of silk pants saw such a country-toppling beauty appear, they all crowded around her, appearing to be particularly attentive. This was especially so for the 3 Yang brothers, as well as Nan Gongla and Wang Bo. All of them stared at her as though they wanted to swallow her in a gulp. All of them gave the noble and virtuous Wei Zhuan a huge headache. For the whole of the second day, Ling Tian actually did not appear at all, causing the 2 ladies to feel disappointed. Actually, Wei Zhuan was not willing to attend this troublesome banquet on the 3rd day. But, Yu Bingyan was dead set on taking Ling Tian as her master in drawing, and thus pulled her back to the outer palace hall. The moment the babes appeared again, the silk pants formed a shield around them, leaping and crowding around the 2 of them with zest, as though they were precious jewels. Having not spotted Ling Tian, the 2 of them were disappointed, ignoring the silk pants pointedly before making an excuse before fleeing the scene. On the road back to the Wei residence, the girls were a little sulky. This was especially so for Yu Bingyan, who was extremely suspicious of Ling Tian in her heart. For someone as widely acclaimed to be a silk pants as him, isn't he embarrassing the title of silk pants by missing such an event? However, thinking from another angle, she felt relieved, if he did not even bother to show face by attending the banquet hosted personally by the emperor. This showed how rampant he actually was. Upon coming to this conclusion, Yu Bingyan could feel her depressed heart lightening up, and could not help but burst out into laughter, making poo-poo tilde sounds. The Wei Zhuan who had to endure all sorts of attention from the silk pants previous was still full of unhappiness in her heart. She could not help but fume as she pouted. However, seeing how Yu Bingyan suddenly burst out into laughter, she could not understand and asked, "Sister, what's the matter?" Yu Bingyan laughed as she replied, "I was thinking, this fellow is really interesting. He is obviously learned and talented beyond extreme, to the point that it would be difficult for him to maintain a low key. However, he chose to do the opposite and raise his infamy to the heavens, but no one suspects him, only thinking of him as an arrogant silk pants. Even for the banquet hosted by the emperor, he actually dared to not turn up for 2 days in a row. Even so, he is only merely cursed at. I'm now really curious, how did he fool the rest these past few years?" Hearing as such, Wei Zhuan also laughed, Thinking of how she bitterly hated this name in the past, she could not help but giggle. Weirdo. Haha, Sister Zhuan, why not we pay this weirdo a visit tomorrow? Yu Bingyan's eyes were already gleaming, as her smile grew even wider. Chapter 96, Cat Out of the Bag. Oh? Sister, don't tell me you like that silk pants? Wei Zhuan looked at Yu Bingyan teasingly. Ah. You, sister. What are you talking about? Yu Bingyan's face turned red as she stomped her feet on the ground. However, she forgot that she was in a sedan, making the sedan shake unsteadily as the porters began to groan. Hee hee. Sister, from how this fellow is able to endure so well, he is probably someone who will accomplish much in future. You should also consider him. Wei Zhuan eyes flashed. While she was saying that with a teasing smile, she meant something else within those words. Haze. Yu Bingyan sighed and said, how is it possible for me to not know that? Young noble Ling is of such a young age but has such a resolute character. How can it possible for him to be someone ordinary? Wei Zhuan then approached her ears and whispered, while the Ling family does not have any real strength now, the Ling family is still the biggest family in the Sky-bearing Empire. Furthermore, with someone like Ling Tian in the Ling family, this sister feels that you should seize the opportunity. Yu Bingyan's eyes turned serious as she considered the matter for a while before replying, while it may be of some help, it wouldn't be of much effect. You should also know, a battle fought at that level is not something which families like the Ling or Yang can take part in. Besides that, it will only harm him. I cannot. Wei Zhuan then exclaimed softly before quickly covering her mouth as she said nervously, Bingyan, you can't possibly be really moved, right? Yu Bingyan's eyes revealed a dim glow of depression as she said, even if I am moved, what can I do? You should also know about my body, how can I even find that person? Even if I find him and he agrees to help, I only have a few years left. A mere 3 years. Since I already know the ending, why should I drag another person down into bitterness with me? Whether or not I am moved, I will never do this. I only wish for him to pass by these few years well. Wei Zhuan's face turned dim as she thought for a moment, actually, there is a way. As she said that, Yu Bingyan interrupted her with a wave, sister, you do not need to say any further. I, Yu Bingyan, will rather die than do that. Wei Zhuan hurriedly said, but they already have men in the Sky-bearing Empire. This is the best excuse. Wouldn't it be a waste for you to miss such an opportunity? Yu Bingyan then said coldly, I have already decided, you do not need to say anything else. Wei Zhuan's face turned serious and did not say anything else. As though Yu Bingyan felt bad, she said in a gentler tone, sister, the both of us are actually just pitiful ladies who are under the arrangement of destiny. Why should we create more troubles? Wei Zhuan then sighed, you are just too kind. I have always found it strange as to why the old ancestor will give you such a name? With jade and ice in your name, making you sound like a cold and callous individual. But, you are instead someone with such a benevolent heart. 1. Yu Bingyan then smiled, this, you better ask the old ancestor to find out. Wei Zhuan stuck out her tongue and said, hee hee, I won't dare to. The two ladies then laughed, washing away the previously tense atmosphere. Ling Tian took Ling Chen, who was dressed as a man, approaching the door sneakily. With regards to Feng, Yun, Lei, Diane, and Qi, Ling Tian had already taught them whatever he could and the rest was up to them. But in the past 2 days, Ling Chen trained with the 5 of them every day and grew more excited by the day. Seeing how the 5 cold-blooded killers would first not know whether to laugh or cry, then grimacing in pain, then begging for mercy with bruises all over and finally lying on the floor unable to move, Ling Chen felt extremely carefree and enjoyable. Every day, she would plead to Ling Tian to go again the next day when they just reached home. After a few days, The few assassins did not dare to voice out their grievances. As they were trained by Ling Tian's cruel beatings, they also experienced a great increase in their strength. With regards to the strange hobby which Ling Tian developed, Ling Tian also chose to stay silent about it. Today morning, Ling Tian had already prepared fully and pulled Ling Tian out of the blanket which he was comfortably snuggled in. When the gates of the Ling family mansion was already in sight, the few servants guarding the gate had already greeted Ling Tian from afar. Ling Tian could not help but reveal an excited expression as she thought to herself, I can finally torture those few brats good again. Thinking about the few moves which Ling Tian taught her last night, Ling Tian wished that she could grow wings to fly to those brats and torture them immediately. Stop there. Where are you going? A familiar voice sounded as Chu Tinger questioned with anger. At that moment, both the faces of Ling Tian and Ling Chen sulked as they heard the voice. After turning around slowly, Ling Tian forced out a smile, ha ha, good morning mother. The morning air is so fresh today. The birds and singing, skies are clear. It is really such a beautiful day. Even the most unpleasant mood would be lifted with such a beautiful weather. Hee hee. Chu Tinger's mouth twitched for a moment as her boiling anger dissipated by these few teasing words from her beloved son. After giving 2 stern coughs, she calmed herself down and said, the weather today is good indeed, but my mood is not good. It is extremely bad. As she said that, she thought about the hateful actions of Ling Tian and her anger began to simmer again. Ling Tian sighed bitterly as he grit his teeth and said, I wonder what made mother's mood so horrible? Chu Tinger then gave a cold grunt, because of the good son I brought up. The good son who pretends to be obedient but disobeys me in secret. She glared at Ling Tian as she said that, speak. Where have you gone in the past 2 days? Knowing that the cat was out of the bag, he wittily replied, this child had been visiting friends for the past few days. I was having pleasant conversations with beauties all around and have benefited greatly. Ha! 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 Chu Tinger laughed from anger as she roared, if not for the fact that I sent someone to ask Quang Bo, I would still be kept out of the loop now. You are really bold. Ask Quang Bo? Ask Quang Bo about? Ling Tian grit his teeth as he thought, so it was this little brat who let the news leak. After Chu Tinger heard that his son had a good conversation with the ladies in the palace, including the daughter of Minister Wei and General Shen, she was doubtful in her heart but still kept on to that little hope. Thus, she sent someone to ask Quang Bo who Ling Tian was talking to in the past 3 days. If this matter was true, then she would have one less thing to worry about. The outcome can be easily imagined. After she asked, Quang Bo began to stutter. While he had the heart to conceal the matter for Ling Tian, their testimonies just did not match. After Chu Tinger spotted the discrepancies in both their statements, she paid a personal visit to Wang Bo and found out that Ling Tian only showed his face for a short while on the first day before disappearing. As for the next 2 days, he was completely nowhere to be found. After hearing this reply, Chu Tinger's rage began to boil. Guessing that Ling Tian will sneak out today again, she woke up early today especially to catch him in the act. Seeing how Ling Tian still wanted to deny the matter, she just wanted to give him a good beating. Kneel down. In anger, Chu Tinger's voice began to grow sharper. Kneel down? Right. Here? As Ling Tian looked at the servants by the door, he said with embarrassment. Where else do you expect? If you are not going to kneel down, I will. Chu Tinger said with exasperation, as she looked around in search for something good to use. She spent so much effort to create this plan with consort Ling Ran, even alerting the emperor, just to create this opportunity for Ling Tian. But, this fellow did not even bother turning up. The angered Chu Tinger was extremely disappointed, almost wishing she could chase this unfilial son of hers out of the house. Seeing how her mother was really angered, Ling Tian could not help but feel apologetic in his heart and knelt down obediently to accept the furious education of his mother. Ling Tian's mother from his previous life had passed away early and he did not experience the love of a mother. This life, even if Chu-Tinger were to scold him or punish him, he would still feel extremely warm in his heart. In fact, he even felt like creating trouble on purpose at times so he can get scolded and punished by his mother. That would also be a great happiness for him. As Ling Tian saw that things was not going well, she also knelt down behind Ling Tian's back. Just when Ling Tian was kneeling down near the entrance of the mansion with Chu-Tinger not bothering about her image as she lectured Ling Tian with her saliva flying all about, a small sedan stopped in the front of door and two young ladies walked out of it. One of them was extremely beautiful with an elegant and poised charisma surrounding her. Both the servants at the gate were covering their mouths as they giggled at the sight of their young master being punished. None of them noticed the two ladies walk into the mansion openly. "Ah!" An incredulous exclamation sounded from that beautiful lady. Chapter 97, The Beauty Visits. Wei Zhuan and Yu Bingyan were afraid that if they came late, Ling Tian would be out pretending to be a silk pants again. Thus, they decided to arrive earlier. However, they never expected to witness such a show the moment they stepped into the mansion. They saw their idol, Ling Tian, kneeling on the floor pathetically and the usually demure and elegant wife of General Ling teaching her son a lesson with a finger pointed at him and her other hand by her waist. This scenario in front of them was miles apart from what the two ladies expected to see. They could not help but look at each other as they both thought, "Don't tell me we walking into the wrong house?" If not for the fact that the one kneeling down was the young man who painted the beautiful painting and composed the amazing poem, both the ladies would probably turn and walk away immediately. Chu-Tinger was even more surprised. Ever since the infamous name of her son spread it across the capital, this was the first time that a young lady of such an age walked into the gates of their Ling mansion. Furthermore, her unsightly behavior was witnessed by both the ladies. In awkwardness, she forced out a face full of smiles as she welcomed her guests. At the same time, she used her foot to nudge her own son, hinting him to get up quickly. "I wonder what both of you ladies are here at my Ling mansion for?" Chu-Tinger tried to make her voice sound gentler. But after flying into a rage a moment ago, her voice sounded extremely unnatural. Wei Zhuan and Yu Bingyan took a deep bow as they said, "This must be Auntie Ling, right? This niece is Wei Zhuan and my father is Wei Zhengfeng, beside me is my younger cousin. I have always heard from my mother that Auntie is an outstanding person in the capital. After seeing you today, the rumors are indeed true." Chu-Tinger immediately held her hand. "Haha, so you are Zhuan. I have heard my son mention your name these past few days. Haha, the way you look. It must have been difficult for your parents. How did they bring up such a beautiful daughter like you?" No matter what, she first chose to praise her son, but she did not forget to add on some pleasantries. Zhuan, are the health of your parents good? I have not seen your mother for quite some time and I really do miss her. Thank you Auntie for your concern. Father and mother are both healthy. Mother also wants to pay a visit to Auntie, but she has not been able to find time because of the many affairs within the family. I will definitely relay Auntie's goodwill to my mother and I believe she will be very happy. Wei Zhuan was extremely tactful with her words and also a polite individual. The more Chu-Tinger looked at her, the more Chu-Tinger liked her. Haha, I wonder why Zhuan is here today. Chu-Tinger asked with confusion as she thought to herself, I am only vaguely acquainted with Miss Wei. Ling Zhou, as a general, would almost never come into contact with Minister Wei, who was the Minister of Rights. Why did his daughter come knocking on my doorstep? Us sisters are here today to find young noble Ling. Wei Zhuan looked towards Ling Tian as she said that. Chu-Tinger could not help but grow nervous as she thought, don't tell me Ling Tian had harassed these two ladies? Doesn't seem that way. It doesn't seem like they are here with bad intentions. Chu-Tinger began to grow excited as she thought, don't tell me it was true when Tanner said that he had a pleasant conversation with the ladies? This is a miracle." Ling Tian, who was just previously embarrassed in front of these two ladies, was now full of a self-satisfied expression without a trace of awkwardness. As the two ladies looked at him, Ling Tian also returned a smile with elegance, as though nothing had happened previously. However, Ling Chen, who was behind him, helped him feel embarrassed on his behalf. "This young noble of mine, not only is his martial arts unrivaled under the heavens, his skin is also probably the thickest in the world." Looking at how Ling Tian was acting, the two ladies almost could not control themselves from laughing. If it was any other person who was caught in such a pathetic situation, they would have probably lost the face to see the world, escaping at the quickest possible speed and never leaving the house again. But this young noble Ling was actually able to act completely indifferently and even had a look of self-satisfaction. They could not help but think to themselves, it seems that these few years of acting as a silk pants was not for nothing. Not only is young noble Ling's painting and poetic skills amazing, his skin is also unnaturally thick. After seeing the spectacular display by young noble Ling the other day, this little girl thought that young noble must have been of royal descent, a royal prince. "I never imagined that you were the young noble of the Ling family. I hope that young noble will forgive me for my rude behavior the other day. This little sister also hope that young noble will forgive us for visiting on such short notice and not blame us for the uninvited visit," Yu Bingyan said calmly with a smile. The moment she opened her mouth, she narrowed the gap between them by changing this little girl to this little sister. With regards to how thick Ling Tian's skin was, Yu Bingyan was not surprised at all. After silently enduring for so many years, it would be a wonder if he did not have such thick skin. Seeing that these two ladies were here to pay a visit to her son instead of finding trouble, Chu Tinger's eyes widened in pleasant surprise. The ancestors of the Ling family had finally came through for her. If her son is able to change his ways and hug a beauty back home, Chu Tinger would feel as though she have no more regrets in life. Thus, she quickly invited the two ladies into the main hall. Before Ling Tian had a chance to greet Yu Bingyan, his mother had already warmly welcomed the both of them into the room. The two female guards of Yu Bingyan also followed closely behind her. With a bitter laugh, he looked at Ling Chen, only to see her trying to conceal her laughter as she asked, "Young noble, is this Miss Wei a candidate for your future wife?" Ling Chen shook his head and said, "Nope, but I am more interested in the one beside her." Ling Chen was startled, thinking about how Yu Bingyan was so tan and unattractive. She could not help but look towards Ling Tian with a strange appearance as she thought, "Don't tell me young noble's perception of beauty is also so different from others." As Ling Tian saw that weird expression on Ling Chen's face, he understood what she was thinking about. He did not know whether to laugh or cry, rubbing her head as he whispered to her, "Foolish lass, that lady is the little princess of the Yu family. She concealed her appearance. Stupid. Go back quickly and dress up properly." Ling Chen came to an immediately realization as she began to giggle. The young noble is indeed the young noble, his means are indeed exceptional, not having any problems with hooking up girls. In the guest room, Chu Tinger had already commanded the maids to serve fragrant tea as she sat there with a smile, studying the two ladies like a mother-in-law studying her future daughter-in-law. From time to time, she would nod her head with a smile, making the faces of both the ladies turn red from embarrassment, wanting to bury their heads in the ground. Chapter 98, Battle of Wits. Ling Tian smiled and said, "Mother, if you continue staring at them like that, you will scare these two beautiful ladies." Chu Tinger then grunted as she thought to herself in frustration, this child, having such a glib tongue in front of the two ladies. What if the both of them end up misunderstanding him? She could not help but glare at Ling Tian. Thinking about how the two ladies were here to find her son, it didn't seem right for her to still be present. Thus, Chu Tinger stood up and said, "Tanner, since the two ladies came here specially to look for you, they must have something to discuss with you. Your mother is a little tired and I will be going back to my room first." Zhuan, tell your mother that I will definitely pay her a visit at a later date." Both the ladies stood up and sent her off with a bow. "Thank you, Auntie, let us send you off." They also heaved a sigh of relief at the same time. As Chu Tinger saw how both the ladies were relieved of a burden as though they could not help but wish she was gone, she laughed in her heart. When she walked to the door, she sent an eye signal to Ling Tian, signaling him to find her. She then whispered to him, "This Zhuan isn't too bad, mother likes her a lot. Tanner, you must grasp this opportunity well, if..." As she said that, her face turned red as she nudged Ling Tian to walk out a little further with her. Ling Tian was extremely clear that his mother wanted to teach him a trick or two and could not help but laugh bitterly. While Chu Tinger was ignorant, Ling Tian knew that it was impossible for these two ladies to be alone. The two experts would have definitely followed them here. If his mother gives him some rotten idea in desperation for a daughter-in-law, it would definitely be heard by the both of them. While he would not mind, it would not be good for his mother's reputation. Chu Tinger, who wanted to teach some last-minute tips of how to woo a lady to her son, realized that her son completely did not understood what she meant. His eyes were only fixed on the two ladies as his body did not budge an inch. Fool! Idiot! Chu Tinger was both angered and anxious in her heart. But, since she had already said that she was going to take her leave, she could only leave with a stomach full of resentment, cursing Ling Tian along the way. Seeing Chu Tinger leave, the three of them let out a heave of relief in unison. They then could not help but stare at each other as they burst out into laughter. As they laughed, the distance between the three of them narrowed all of a sudden. Ling Tian then opened his mouth first. "I wonder what both of you ladies are looking for me for?" Although he was extremely clear why they looked for him, he feigned ignorance on the surface. Both the ladies focused their gaze on Ling Tian as Yu Bingyan said with a smile, "Mr. Deary dreams of worldly affairs, we meet again. Haha, young noble Ling Tian, really hid yourself well. Your schemes really makes this little sister admire you." However, she did not answer Ling Tian's question but made a joke. Her meaning was obvious: "Since we already saw through your disguise, there is no need for you to act like a silk pants in front of us." Ling Tian gave a wide smile as he said, "I'm guilty. After seeing that both of you ladies were unfamiliar and that you were painting, I could not help but have a go at it, disgracing myself. I thought that we would be strangers in passing and not meet each other again, but I never expected the both of you to be so resourceful, finding where I stay. Rest assured, if I, Ling Tian, still acts like a silk pants, that would be too disrespectful." Ling Tian's words explain why he revealed his talents, as he subtly indicated that it was a casual gesture of his with no intentions of getting to know the both of them. Thus, it made it seem as though he had no ulterior motives behind his actions and he was a gentleman. Both the ladies smiled as each other and Yu Bingyan asked again, "I wonder why young noble concealed yourself as such? Why go to such lengths?" Ling Tian responded with a laugh, "Both of you ladies are considered smart and understand my Ling family. Why is there a need to ask such a question? This brat is indeed a good talker." While he answered their question, it can be said that he did not answer them at all, as good as saying nothing. The reason why Ling Tian was concealing himself was a huge taboo for anyone present to mention it. The both ladies felt extremely depressed. Yu Bingyan then composed herself and did not beat about the bush any further. "Back then, this little sister saw your mystical painting skills and deeply admired you in my heart. Today, I paid a sudden visit to young noble in hope that you can teach me." Just when Ling Tian was laughing to himself as he saw how the both of them were stumped for words, Yu Bingyan suddenly cut to the chase. He could not help but praise in his heart, "This little princess of the Yu family is indeed extraordinary, with every single word of hers so gentle but yet so strong." Yu Bingyan's words sounded extremely simple. It first stated her purpose for coming to answer Ling Tian's previous question. At the same time, it was to prevent herself from being led on by Ling Tian's words. Furthermore, she purposefully emphasized on how she witnessed his mystical painting skills to remind Ling Tian that if he did not agree, his secret would no longer be kept. Ling Tian laughed bitterly. "Forgive my rudeness, but I have not asked this little sister for your name." At the same time, he joyfully thought to himself, "This is the greatest benefit of acting as a silk pants. If not, how can I call a random lady who I just met a little sister?" Yu Bingyan was stunned for a moment as she realized that she had only been calling herself little sister, and had not introduced herself yet. The words of Ling Tian was obviously trying to tease her. She could not help but be embarrassed and angered as she said hatefully, "This little girl has the surname Yu Bingyan." Ling Tian snickered in his heart. After hearing how she called herself little girl instead, it was obvious that she was dissatisfied. With a smile, he said, "The autumn waters as god with the frozen jade as colors. This little sister has a good name. It seems that the one who came up with this little sister's name is also an exceptional person. I wonder who is this talented figure?" Yu Bingyan was stumped as she thought to herself, "This fellow is obviously trying to find out my origins. He is actually trying to find that out from my name. Furthermore, he is able to maintain such a calm disposition when asking that. It seems that when he heard my surname, he already had an idea of where I came from." Only then did she realize that she had already fell for his trap. In embarrassment and anger, she had given out her name. In this generation, it was a completely different meaning for a lady to give her name to a guy. Thinking about this, her face could not help but burn as she heard him calling her little sister again. Looking at the smirk of self-satisfaction which Ling Tian seemed to have, Yu Bingyan was both abashed and angered as she scolded, "Since you have already guessed it, why bother asking?" As she said that, she was also shocked by her own tone as she thought, "Just what is wrong with me? Why am I so easily influenced by him?" She could not help but take a few deep breaths in order to calm herself down. Ling Tian laughed, "That's right. So, this little sister is indeed born in an aristocratic family. No wonder you carry yourself with such a dignified and graceful bearing." At the same time, he snickered in his heart, "Lass, it is far too late for you to find out now." However, Ling Tian's words gave Yu Bingyan a misconception, so, he was only guessing previously but did not dare to be certain. It seems that my words were akin to confirming his guess. As she thought about that, she was no longer willing to be on the defense. Thus, she initiated an attack. "Young noble Ling says that this little sister has a graceful bearing. But, this little sister's appearance is not worth mentioning at all. It seems that you are ridiculing this little sister's ugly appearance?"